Hi, welcome to my build of a 60-inch wingspan Avanti Pattern Plane. In this video I'm going to be hopefully finishing off the fuselage, or at least getting it to a point where I need to start working on all the profiling. The first job I think I will do is make sure that the fuel tank, which is going to need to go in from the underside where the wings are, can be put into place easy enough. This is going to get sheeted, it's going to be enclosed, so there's going to be no access from the top. Originally I thought maybe I'd have a removable cover, but I would rather do it as one piece so it just looks like a really sleek aeroplane with no kind of seams where it comes on and off. There's going to be a canopy, and obviously there's more balsa that needs to go on here to be shaped. So as I said, the fuel tank needs to be fitted, or at least make sure I can fit it from the underside. And I also need, as part of doing the fuel tank, I need to fit the engine. And to power this plane, I've got this beautiful Irvine 61, which I'm really quite excited about. It's never seen fuel, it's a brand new engine. And if you're interested in a closer look at this and the running of this while I'm running it in, take a look in the description below, and there'll be a video there of me running this up and having a bit of a look inside. So I need to make sure that that fits in there and I can get the fuel tank in. So also there are some quite big pieces of balsa for the underside and on this side here, and it all needs sheeting, and there's a big block to go in there as well. This is really balsa heavy at the front now, and when I get that other balsa on, it's going to be even chunkier. But when you look at the plans, there's huge amounts of balsa that are coming off here. It's going to be very chunky until I start, and then we're going to plane it and sand it down to a really sleek finish. And we've got a ring here which we're going to aim to, which I need to line up with the engine. So I'm going to get on and do that now and start to pull some of this together, start to get these things fitted and the balsa on, and then we'll come back in a bit and have a look and see how that pans out. Well, I've spent a considerable amount of time now, or it feels like it, just thinking about what I'm doing and adding a bit and just making sure it'll work. This build is probably the tightest build I've ever done. The only access that you have once it's finished is going to be on the underside of the wings when the wings are removed, or through the actual engine bay itself. The first thing I wanted to do was to make sure I could actually get the fuel tank in place, and to do that it has to slot under the wings here, and I've had to trim a little bit of a slot in this 5mm 3/16 cover that is eventually going to fit on there. This still needs trimming and shaping at the front, trimming at the back, but at least I know with that slot in, the fuel tank will fit in easily enough. There's still the issue of lining up the fuel pipes, but I can use longer tubing and that will be fine. So that's okay. So let's just put that to one side for the moment. The other issue I've had is fitting the engine itself, which I've now got fitted into place. I've just taken off the carb, blocked up the hole with a bit of tissue, and also wrapped a bit of cling film, because there's quite a big gap around here between the bearing and the prop driver, and the bearing's not a shielded bearing, so I didn't want to get any muck in there and compromise that bearing. But that will fit in nicely now. I've got the balsa on the front here. What I've had to do is I've had to extend the length of the fuselage by, I think it was 15mm or about 12mm, no, 15mm. The engine that I'm using, which I hadn't got when I built the fuselage, and I built the fuselage to spec, to the plans, but the fuselage, the engine I'm using, the Irvine 61, it must just be slightly longer than the engine that was used in the plan, which was an Enya 60 Mark III, I believe, or number 3. I'm not sure. So I've had to extend that a little bit. It's no big deal. I've just epoxied on some more balsa that fits the shape of the front of the fuselage, and I've done the grain running the same way, so that when I'm sanding it, planing it to size, it will still be easy to do. I'm not cutting across the grain. It'd have been a lot easier to get a slab of balsa and just put it on that way, but that would create problems later on. So I've got big chunks of balsa which I put in the underside here and also in the front, so that all needs shaping right down nicely. On the underside I've got a 10mm balsa base that is going to be stuck on there. That's my next job. But before I did that, I wanted to make sure that I could actually get the landing gear into place, and you can see there that just slots in. I have to get it at a little bit of an angle. I wanted to get that slot as small as possible. Small amount of movement, but that should be fine. It's surprising what you can get away with. And because of the limited access, I've also glued in the flexible snake, which I've done slightly long, but that just comes through now and into the engine bay there. And I've had that all coupled up to make sure that it works. So I'm confident that I can get this to work okay when it's done. I will probably have to modify it a little bit more inside here once I've got the engine in and fitted with the carb, just for the high-speed needle. On this side I'm going to have to just trim it down a little bit, I think, and also on this side I might have to shave a little bit off the inside just for the controls for the throttle. What I've got to do as well before I put on this top surface is I'm going to make sure that I've got the flexible line in here for the throttle cable. I've got the hole in there, it just needs slightly enlarging, but that's essentially where that's going to go through. And again, I'll do that oversized, and then eventually when I come down I can trim these as to where the servos are. And I don't know where the servos are going to be at the moment because I don't know on the weight distribution. They could be forward or backwards. I mean, the engine itself I put as far backwards as I can, as close as to the firewall. The engine is a very, very tight fit in the engine bay there. Just one thing about the engine, one of the ways that it was suggested that the engine should be bolted into place on the plans is that below these hardwood mounts on the side here, you would have a threaded plate of steel. I did start to make one, yeah, like a threaded plate that you would slip underneath into a slot that you could bolt down into, because the idea is that you can't get to the bolts under here. Yes, I could cut holes in, but I'm trying to make this as sleek as possible. The steel I had was a bit thin. I didn't feel it was going to be quite substantial enough and wanted to do something a little bit different. And so I've made myself some pieces of 6mm plywood, and they've got balsa on the back and they've got captive nuts epoxied in. So these are just two kind of clamping plates, if you like, and these, let's get the right one, the left hand one, these just fit into a slot there like that. Hopefully that'll pick up on the camera, and then the bolts for the engine will just screw down into that to hold that in place. So that seems to be a pretty good secure method. And the weight of these is going to be no different. In fact, it might be slightly lighter than actually using a piece of steel which was a bit thicker and kind of substantial enough. So I think that's a good solution. These captive nuts will be fine. That will hold that lovely. So I think that's probably about it for now. I need to, as I say, I need to get that glued on the bottom and get the final linkages in for the throttle, get this finished on the top, and then starts the process of shaping. But as I said earlier, you can see it's really got my head scratching, working out what's coming off here and how that's going to look, where this is coming up. There's a couple of pieces of triangular stock that will go on the back of there and just bring this out a little bit, and there's some triangular stock to go just here. To be honest, I don't really think that triangular stock is needed. This is like built like a tank, so unless you actually drive it into the ground like a post, I think it would be fine. So I think that's probably about it. I'm going to get on now and glue that onto the bottom. I think what I will probably do once I've done that is I will fuel proof everything. I will use epoxy diluted down with a little bit of ethanol and fuel proof all around this, because once I get that on, once I get my top cover on, I'm not going to be able to get into this fuel bay to fuel proof it. So with this build, because it's so constricted, all the time you're thinking ahead about how you've got access and whether you're going to lose access by doing something. So I'll get on and do that now. I've now got to a stage where I've finished the basic construction of the fuselage. There's a couple of small jobs to do, but I'm not going to do those until later on. And one of those is putting in these pieces of triangular stock just on the front of the nose ring here. The reason I'm not putting those in until I've actually finished shaping the fuselage is because at the moment all the grain runs that way, and there's a huge amount of wood to come off this to make it into that bullet shape. With the grain running upwards, it's just going to cause problems catching on the plane, so I'm going to leave those, and it won't make any difference really. I've got the top deck now on the fuselage, and I've done a little bit of a set down here where I'm going to put a little bit of a seat affair and a pilot, I think. And I've also put on a back plate here, which I hadn't done previously, and that just finishes that off nicely. I haven't actually glued this top plate on yet. The reason I haven't is because one of the jobs I have to do is to make a canopy, and I'm going to be making a plug and then shrinking acetate around that, maybe from a bottle, maybe from some film. I'll see how that goes. And I want to be able to take this off and actually sit the plug on there to get the basic shape before I then probably carve the actual fuselage itself and then do the final fitting of the canopy plug before making the canopy. That's kind of the idea of it, but we'll see how we get on with that. That may well change. So, and as I said, the only other job now is to get on and really start to shape this, and I'm really excited, and I know I keep saying that, or I feel like I keep saying that, but I do get very excited at every single stage that we see as it starts to develop, and I've been looking forward to doing this shaping for quite some time now. So I'm going to draw this video to a close, and like I say, next couple of videos, I'm not sure which order they'll be, will be the canopy and hopefully shaping the fuselage itself. So thanks very much for following and watching, and I'll hope you come back and see the final stages.